Are you currently struggling to commercialise and expand your business across borders? Find out how to overcome these challenges in this episode of Tomorrow's Tech. Today, we welcome serial entrepreneur and leader in the private label product development and commercialisation space, Vanessa Garrard. Vanessa is also the founder of 17 consumer product companies that have been successfully commercialised across Australia, New Zealand, the US, Europe and Asia. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thanks for having me.
Vanessa, you have a lot of business success experience behind you. What are the key pillars to successfully commercialise?
Look, I think if we're talking about expanding overseas, one thing I'd really recommend is making sure you've got a proven track record at home. So what that does is a couple of things in that if you're going into a new country and you don't have a reputation built yet, that actually shows and gives confidence to the buyer or the decision maker that you know what you're doing. Right? So I think a proven track record would be one. The next thing I'd say is probably underestimated a little bit, I find, is research. So I can't hone in enough on how much research you should do. And when I say research, I'm looking at things like what value you're going to add, particularly if you're going to displace a competitor. If they've already got strong relationships and partnerships in that country, what are you going to do differently? Why would they deal with you, right? So I think understanding really clearly what value you add is something that's really critical when you're doing your research. The next thing I'd say is, are there any competitors in that country that you could deal with? And there may be some that you could work with in terms of a JV or working as an agent or a distributor. When you're looking at that, can you build a long-term relationship with them? Is there something reciprocal in terms of could you bring their products into your country? Could they take theirs, your products in there? So I'd really look at who are the competitors you may be able to work with.
Yeah, good point. What are the key parameters to consider when commercialising internationally?
I think first thing I'd say is pricing. A major obstacle a lot of companies I find get into is they haven't considered pricing properly. So if you've got to work with a partner, have you considered putting in margin for them? So if you're working with an agent or a distributor, somebody who's going to take a cut of that, have you looked at your pricing structure? Is it transparent? So a buyer or a decision maker in a new country will probably be able to Google and find your pricing. Is that transparent in that you can allow a margin for somebody else to sit in the middle? So I find a lot of companies don't consider that going into market beforehand, and it makes it really tricky and can be a barrier for actually launching into new markets. So if you can at all possible, when you're starting a business, look at your pricing structure that you may need to allow that into your margin pool. The second thing I'd say is understanding the local certifications and compliance, because they obviously differ around the world, right?
Yep.
So what do you need? And again, this might be why you've JV'd or partnered up with somebody in that country who already has that set up. If they're established and they've got those certifications, it'll save you time, it'll save you money. They'll know the nuances that are needed in that market that you may not understand. So I think that's where you can really leverage that relationship. The other thing I'd say is idiosyncrasies. Things like language, right? So do you need multilingual? We went into Canada, we didn't realise we were going to need French and we're also going to need English.
Oh, wow.
And so you have to redo all of the packaging, all of the product, all the instruction manuals, all the compliance. So those things I'd look at. The other thing I think is something we underestimated, certainly with my camping outdoor business, where our biggest category is gazebos. So in Australia we call them gazebos. I was sitting in front of buyers in the US market and we're talking, here's our gazebos and here's our content.
Yep.
They're all giving me this blank look and I'm trying to figure out why. They call it marquee.
Oh, okay.
They don't know what a gazebo is.
Yep.
Right. So, and it's simple. And now looking at it saying, well, we didn't even look at that and didn't think that was going to be an issue. So that came down to, again, even as long as I've been doing this, we still make mistakes, right? So research, again, is key there. But the other thing is even a swag. Our second biggest product is swag in Australia. They don't call it a swag. It's a one-man tent. So understanding that, we went into market and we were able to then hit the market really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. How can businesses reconfigure their commercialisation strategies with current restrictions on domestic and international borders?
Yeah, look, I think, this discussion's come up a lot lately, I've been asked, and I think it's COVID. What it has done is a lot of countries are actually looking insular. They're looking at how they build their own economies again. So that's making it tricky in that some of the borders are just, we're looking at other countries and they're saying, no, we want to deal locally. You can get around that, right? So I think there's never an obstacle in business. There's always some way to get there. And what I would suggest is why it's even more critical now to actually look at partnerships. Is there someone in that country or in that state that you could be working with that does have the relationships and will be able to take your products in for you? So I think it shouldn't be I think in terms of business generally, there's always obstacles, there's always challenges, but there's always a way around it. I think the other thing would be really looking at how you build those relationships sustainably. So can you, and can it be reciprocal? So can you help them? Because the collaboration is really key right now. I think that's the only way we'll move through this. And the faster way, smarter way to do business going forward, and probably always has been, is who can you work with?
Thanks, Vanessa. What would be the biggest mistake that you've made in commercialisation, and how have you managed this?
Oh, geez. I think probably from my point of view, I would absolutely say not partnering sooner.
Okay.
So we should have done that. And I think over the 30 years that I've had businesses, it would have been much faster and much easier if we'd partnered up earlier. So we definitely do that now. But I can say, us going into the US market and Japan particularly, it would have cost us millions in lost time and focus and resource in not partnering. So had we done that sooner, we would be there faster. And it's certainly, as we go into new businesses now, I always work on a collaboration strategy. So we work on who is in that market that we want to go into, who's got the relationships, who can we work with. So again, and that's why I can't stress enough how much it's, for me, I think, important to work with other people.
Thank you, Vanessa. It is really important to consider how those key partnerships can set you up for success in commercialisation, both domestically and internationally. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everybody who tuned into this episode. If you liked the episode, follow us on the Tomorrow's Tech LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook pages, and also subscribe now to the Tomorrow's Tech YouTube channel. Be the movement. If you want more deep insights to the hard questions, we'll see you again next time for another episode of Tomorrow's Tech.
Tomorrow's Tech, presented by 3 Dot Digital.